What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And we are coming to you guys after arguably the best game of the year already. Yes, we are in January, but this one was something to behold. We knew all the storylines coming in. Number one offense, number one defense, 15-0 streak, 10-0 streak. Somebody's streak had to end tonight, and it was not the Cleveland Cavaliers. They pulled out a 129-122 win over the OKC Thunder, ending their 15-0 streak over their last 15 games, except, as Jimmy would like me to mention, for the NBA Cup championship game. But with all that being said, it was a game that did not feel like a game that was happening in January. Chris, can you, especially being in Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, being in the queue, being around these kind of dynasty teams, what did it feel like being in the arena tonight specifically?
Man, it was awesome. That's the only way to describe it. It was an awesome regular season basketball game. And, I thought everybody did a really, really good job in the buildup of this game and focusing on the game itself. And tonight was one of those where F market, F the ancillary factors, F drama. That was pure basketball at its finest. And it shows that you don't need all that other stuff. As long as you have a great product with two great teams in a highly competitive matchup, that wins the day. That's always going to win the day, and that's going to be enough. So the fact that ESPN was pumping this up and ABC was pumping this up, and the NBA sent out a tweet earlier today giving 25 reasons why to watch Cavs Thunder, and then to have the game deliver the way that it did, God, I love that. It was an awesome regular season basketball game. And Donovan Mitchell said it after the game, no championships are won, but put that aside for right now. We all understand that. Spring is the litmus test for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but put that aside for now and just enjoy that was one of the best basketball games that you've probably ever witnessed, because it was in terms of the regular season. That's up there with the Christmas Day games against the Golden State Warriors. It is. It's up there with some of the regular season wars that the Cavs have had in the past, in LeBron's first go-around against the Boston Celtics and against the Orlando Magic. It was a game that was hyped as one of the rarest ever in NBA history, and it delivered. It lived up to the hype. And you don't always have that being the case when you talk about these hyped-up games. But boy, was this a win for the NBA. It was a win for the Cavs. It was a win for NBA fans. It was a win for NBA schedule makers that decided to flex it. I just thought it was awesome. And I'm going to be glowing about it for a long time because it's going to be one that I remember for a long time.
Yeah, the only thing it was missing was like a super crazy ending, right? I mean, I thought the ending as it was like Evan Mobley's clutch bucket, followed by him making Shea alter his shot at the other end, followed by Darius scoring a clutch bucket. Like there was energy, there was juice, like just no buzzer beater. That's kind of the only critique I would make. But for 4 quarters, 251 points total, and there was great defense played throughout. Like the 251 points are a product of incredible shot making and incredible ball and body movement from both teams. It's amazing what happens when you promote the good basketball teams regardless of where they plant their flag on the map, right? Like sometimes I just wonder, I am market pilled right now because this is the column I'm writing in the morning. I just wonder, like when ESPN originally put this schedule together, and the game tonight was supposed to be Knicks Raptors. Who was that for? And I get it. It was for like the bing bong guy on the sidewalk in New York City, right? That's who it was for, I guess. But who needs to I no disrespect to the Raptors who will be here tomorrow. Like I agree, Scottie Barnes is all-star. I'm all about the Raptors. But we all knew the Raptors were going to suck before the season. I'm trying to be diplomatic here, Chris. I don't like this. We're
Who
talking
says
about
they're all about the Raptors? I don't even think people in Toronto
I'm
at
trying
this
to be
point are all about the
diplomatic. I'm
Raptors.
trying to be diplomatic right now. Okay, this is we're
There's a
traveling
Toronto
international.
Raptors writer. There's a Toronto Raptors writer that came to Cleveland for tonight's game between the Cavs and the Thunder, and he's not even staying for tomorrow's game between the Cavs and he's not even covering his own team.
That's
He just
actually
wanted
incredible.
to cover Cavs Thunder and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I should have just said
I don't know.
disrespect
Drake's even
to the
gone
Raptors.
to as many.
Yeah, Drake. Well, Drake's trying to stay in hiding generally, but no disrespect to the Raptors is what I mean to say. But like, what was the thought process? We all knew that the Thunder were going to be really good, and we all knew the Cavs would be pretty good. They've been pretty good, and it's like, yeah, man. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. Two teams that play really good basketball. Like there's 6 potential all-stars on the court, 4 who have already been all-stars. 2, Evan Mobley should definitely be an all-star. Jalen Williams, the West is loaded, but I mean that OKC definitely deserves 2, and he was incredible tonight until the end. To Chris's point, like I love it when we, and maybe we're gonna end up being wrong about this. Like maybe the viewership won't follow. And by the way, even if that's the case, like I really hope that whoever's making these calls doesn't get discouraged, because like, yeah, it might take some time. Jared Allen was saying at the podium after the game, like some people just learned about the Evan Mobley leap tonight. 36, 35 games in the season, whatever it is. These things take time. You don't just put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Evan Mobley in front of people, and then the next day they're like, well, let me go buy as many jerseys as I can, and let me make Cavs Thunder appointment viewing for the rest of the season. But like, this was an introduction to 2 really good teams, and if you keep feeding people these really good teams who play really good basketball, particularly when they're on the court against each other, I'm willing to bet that the basketball league, just stay with me here, the basketball league, when presented with good basketball, the basketball fans will respond. I'm just spitballing.
And this is my primary takeaway. There's just no way that anybody could not believe in the Cavs at this point. What do you even say? If you're somebody who still doubts them, if you're somebody that's still waiting for like the other shoot, what do you say? Like, to borrow bars from Tristan Thompson, who was just hovering over Darius Garland's post-game interview. And, I asked Darius point blank. I finally had enough. And I asked him point blank. I said, do you believe you should be an all-star? And Tristan Thompson just took over. And he dropped bar after bar after bar. So to borrow a few bars from him, Milwaukee, body bag multiple times. New York, body bag. Philly, Boston, body bag. Golden State, body bag twice. Oklahoma City, body bag. Like, what else do the Cavs have to do? Tonight was a game against OKC, riding a 15-game winning streak. Sorry, Jimmy. Riding a 15-game winning streak. The best team in the Western Conference. The number 1 defense in the NBA. Yes, they didn't have Alex Caruso. Yes, they didn't have Chet Holmgren. The fact that they've done this
by the way,
those guys,
they didn't have them. They didn't have them against the Celtics the other day either, and they strangled the Celtics the other day.
The fact that they've done this without them for an extended stretch is incredibly impressive, and by no means does it take anything away from the Cavs whatsoever. This was the best defense in the NBA coming into tonight, and the Cavs put 129 on them. 129 with Donovan Mitchell going 3 of 16, with Donovan Mitchell scoring 11 points. Like, that shows you the growth of this team. That shows you the depth of this team. That shows you the evolution of this team. That shows you the firepower of this team. It was the 5th time all season long Oklahoma City gave up a 40-plus point quarter. The Cavs did it in the 3rd quarter with the kind of offense that they have shown throughout the course of this year. So what else do you need to see that makes you a believer? Like, all these different narratives. Evan, Jarrett don't work. Yeah, shove that one. Okay, Donovan and Darius, they have overlapping skill sets. Yeah, take that one and shove it. The Cavs, Their Donovan Mitchell led team and everybody else is just along for the ride. Yeah. Throw that one in the trash too. Whatever you want to say about the Cavs, whatever you've wanted, they're too soft. Remember, that was the narrative because of a couple of years ago, what happened against the Knicks when Evan Mobley was 21 years old at the time and playing in the playoffs for the first time in his career. And Jared Allen wasn't this at that time because that was 2 years ago. And players get bigger and stronger and they mature and they get tougher and they go through things throughout the course of their career that makes them better. It makes them tougher. It makes them mentally stronger. It hardens them. Like, you can't say anything about the Cavs at this point in time, except for, I need to see it in the playoffs. I need to see it in spring. And it's true. Like, I get that. But we're not there yet. So to this point, talking about what they've accomplished so far in the regular season, what else do you need to see from them that you haven't already seen? Like, this is one of the most complete teams of the last 10 years. They are doing things that only the greatest teams in NBA history have accomplished. You can't ignore that.
And Darius talked about it after the game, right? About how this team is different than what it was over the last couple of years. And Kenny Atkinson also mentioned it in his post-game press conference about the vibe in the locker room. They have been completely honest with themselves. They would have lost this game last year. Like, they would have lost this game last year is what they were saying in the locker room, and yet they did not. There were 30 lead changes in today's game, I believe it was. Yeah, 30 lead changes, 8 ties, right? And while we're on the subject of stats, Chris, like, the Cavs are undefeated against the West. They have 11 straight wins. This is their first game in after their 10-game win streak that hasn't been by double digits. They're 19-1 at home. It's the best home start through 20 games in franchise history outside of the 2008-2009 season with LeBron James, where they went 20-0 at home to start their first 20 games, right? So this is a team, and I love how both of you got your takes off of what your overall reaction to this game was. But I want to go back to Jimmy because I let him get his big yap out the way about Shea and the the markets. But Jimmy, first of all, kudos to you. I don't know how you were in 2 places at once to ask this question, but you asked the question to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and seemingly we're still in the Kenny Atkinson press conference room. But when you talk to Shea about the markets, when you talk to him about these 2 teams, a potential NBA Finals rematch or matchup and preview that has 2 small market teams that don't necessarily usually get the same amount of love as LA, Chicago, New York, all these other teams. It didn't matter, as Chris has said on this podcast already, shove it. These are the 2 best teams in the league. What did he say? What did Shea Gilgeous-Alexander say about what he thought about the 2 small markets and the markets in general?
I mean, he basically said what Kenny said about the placement of this game is market be damned. Like, he wants to be in OKC. He's happy there. His whole thing is about winning championships, and as long as he thinks that he can do that in OKC, then there's no reason for him to go anywhere else. The idea I'm getting at here is that, like, I think we're thinking, like, way too behind the times about, like, what stars need to be stars. Like, we have the internet. LaMelo Ball, who plays for the Charlotte Hornets, leads the Eastern Conference guards in all-star voting because of, I don't know, TikTok highlights and a lot of different. I mean, LaMelo was a star long before he got to the NBA. That might be a unique case, but, like, Shea is the leading guard vote getter on the other end. Like, you good, like, basketball fans follow good basketball players wherever they go. Shea is, like, neck and neck with Jokic in MVP tallying right now in Oklahoma City because the Thunder are winning and Shea is incredible. I don't want to get too far down that road. Again, we should have a basketball conversation. And what Ethan was saying about the Cavs' record against the West, you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of I don't know if this is still true, but for the longest time, Lamar Jackson was undefeated against the NFC. Or maybe now he has one loss. I don't know. And it just underscored how unique it was to try and defend Lamar Jackson. And if you don't see him for a while, it's like, holy crap, what are we supposed to do with this? And that's what the Cavs are to the Western Conference. Mark Daigneault before the game was talking about, like, he was fielding a lot of Cavs questions. What makes them so good? Where have you seen Evan Mobley's progression? Whatever. The same kind of talking points we've been discussing with a lot of coaches this year. He's like, I watch more Western Conference teams. Don't count me an expert. It freaking showed. They had a little, that number one defense in the league got a little bit of trouble slowing down this Cavs offense that we, the fans here and we who are watching the games, we've become pretty familiar with it. But the Thunder's top ranked defense gonna need to watch a little bit more film on the Cavs. We'll see what they come out with in about, what was it, 8 days or so? Is it the 16th they play again? Whenever it is. The other thing I would just say is retribution for the two bigs, huh? Like they were the story of this game. Jarrett keeping every last possession alive. My good, it honestly felt like Knicks Cavs in reverse down there with him and Hartenstein. Hartenstein had a nice game. I think he had a double-double, and I think he had 7 assists as well. He was good. But when they were out there together, it just felt like Jarrett was getting the best of him physically, keeping possessions alive, grabbing offensive rebounds, throwing down dunks, controlling things defensively. And Evan, man, the last sequence from Evan is, I was saying this after the game, when they gave him the ball, and Kenny said after the game that when he went at Hartenstein, it was actually supposed to be at Shea. They were trying to get a switch with Shea onto Evan, but they didn't switch. Hartenstein just stayed on him. But when he went at Hartenstein like that, at his chest, and I don't think people understand how hard it is to throw your body weight around and then throw up a soft touch like that. That's really difficult. He did handle that really well. And then at the other end, he basically clinches the win by, Shea's going to his left and Evan's not there, but he is there, and Shea has to think about that, and he throws the finger roll up with a little bit more loft, and it misses as a result. Like, that's what Kobe Altman was envisioning when he drafted Evan Mobley. And now we're seeing it. So I think it's justice for the two big. And yes, I know Chet Holmgren wasn't out there. Actually, funny enough, ran into Chet Holmgren at the downtown YMCA today. I don't know why that's where he was getting his work in, but what's up, Chet? Yes, I know he would have helped a little bit, but I don't know if any of you guys watched the Thunder in the playoffs last year, but the Dallas Mavericks also had a field day against the Oklahoma City Thunder when Chet Holmgren. Now, again, no Hartenstein then, but I'm just saying that Chet Holmgren is not the answer to all your offensive rebounding issues. I think you give me even the full-fledged Thunder front court of Hartenstein after watching what Jared Allen did to Hartenstein tonight, and Chet Holmgren. Like Evan Mobley's ahead of Chet Holmgren on the put some meat on your bones calculus there. So I think this was a huge victory for that part of the Cavs vision that, frankly, I have had a ton of skepticism about over the years. The way they've made this offense work with both those guys out there, the way they have completely flipped the narrative on their toughness. I mean, it feels like the Cavs, I really think the main reason the Cavs won tonight is because they dominated the Thunder inside with their size. And that's just another variation of this team that teams have to, the best temes can win in a bunch of different ways, right? It feels like the Cavs, and Kenny mentioned this, have like 2 or 3 different versions of their team that can give teams really, really significant problems going forward.
And that's an important point. They just have so many different answers for what a defense can try and do against their offense and for what an offense tries to do against their defense. I mean, if you think about it, for a lot of the second half, the Cavs went into the zone because they thought that was going to muck the game up, and they thought that was going to give problems to the Thunder, and that was going to help them limit the attacks off the dribble from Shea and Jalen Williams. But it's just like there are so many different answers that Kenny Atkinson has come up with through the first 36 games of the season. And he's still going to continue to come up with answers the remainder of this regular season. And then when you get into the playoffs, something we talked about on the previous podcast is, don't wait. yeah, you want to collect your data and you want to make your adjustments going into the next game against the Thunder. But Kenny Atkinson was collecting data as the game was going on and pushing all the right buttons, just like he has throughout the course of this regular season, and making the proper adjustments and making the right lineup decisions. He went away from Karis LeVert in the fourth quarter because Karis was getting a little bit too dribble happy. He was hijacking too many offensive possessions. Then he went to Ty Jerome because they thought they needed an extra ball handler, an extra shot creator, and that worked out. And then he closed the game with Max Strus, and that worked out. And he closed the game with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen together, and boy, did that work out because of the offensive rebounds, because of the advantage that they had inside, because of their ability to exploit mismatches. So there are just so many different ways that the Cavs can attack a team's defense, and there are so many ways that they can attack an opponent's offense. They just have more answers than what they've had in the past. They have more versatility than they've had in the past. They've had more diversity within their offense than what they've had in the past. And part of that is just the natural maturation of a team, right? Jared Allen's a different player than he was last year. Evan Mobley is a different, more ready player than he was last year. Darius is a different, more ready player than last year. Ty Jerome is out there in a way that he wasn't out there last year. So it's going to be really, really difficult for teams to come up with 48 minutes of answers for the Cavs. You know, Oklahoma City has given up a defensive rating of 120. They've given up an offensive rating of 120 just 4 times all season long. The Cavs had the second best offensive performance of any team against the Thunder this year, because they just keep coming at you. And it can be Evan Mobley, and it can be Jared Allen, or it can be Donovan Mitchell, or it could be Darius Garland, or it could be Max Strus off the bench with 17, or it could be Ty Jerome off the bench with 15. There's so many different weapons. There's so many different things that they do within this offense to create confusion and create chaos. Kenny Atkinson likes to use the term organized chaos, and that's right. And you had the best defense in the NBA. You had their head spinning at times. Like, who do we double? Who do we close out on? Like, who do we give a mismatch to? And the great thing for Evan in his evolution, and Donovan said this after the game, guys, you know, late in the game in that situation, last year it might have been a floater. Last year it might have been a fadeaway jumper. Last year it might have been some kind of like finesse, soft touch move. No. Not this year. This version of Evan Mobley puts his shoulder into the chest, rams through the guy, plays with a level of force, decisiveness, and confidence, and just attacks the defense in a relentless, ruthless way, in a way that he hasn't in the past. And him being able to do that and attack mismatches against switchy defenses like that, that's just going to make the Cavs more and more lethal when teams try and use that strategy against them.
The other point about the bigs I wanted to make was how well they played as like your short roll guy. Because I mean, the Thunder, the way they defended Donovan and getting, throwing him off his rhythm, sending Lou Dort on him and getting the ball out of his hands, like the Thunder succeeded. They executed their game plan. Donovan Mitchell shot 3 of 16, and they were also good about getting the ball to Darius's hands too. But because Jared Allen and Evan Mobley,
and they lost.
Yeah, and they lost because Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have taken such strides as offensive players, particularly as like offensive outlets. How many times tonight where oh no, the guard's trapped. We'll dish it out to one of the other, and then the other makes a great play. Sometimes for like it's a vision that was planted long ago, making plays for each other, big to big passing, high low. They had so many reps with that now. That's one of the benefits of continuity, right? How many times has Jared Allen played from the pocket to Evan Mobley and vice versa? They've gotten really good at keeping the ball high with each other. That's so important. So that I wanted to. What did they have combined tonight? What did they have? Assist
46.
Assist wise,
13.
13 assists
13.
from your bigs. Come on now. And to the coaching point, I thought the zone was really smart just because of the way OKC plays. They want to get Shea in the paint and get it out to shooters. Well, it's harder to get in the paint where there's a wall built in the paint, and then they're making other guys make decisions with the ball who are not as used to making decisions with the ball. I remember Jalen Williams has the ball all the time, but there was one play where the Cavs threw out the zone. I think it was in the fourth quarter, and Jalen Williams is on the wing, kind of looking uncertain with what to do, and SGA is clapping for it at the top of the key, and J-Dub kind of like half-heartedly throws a pass to Hartenstein, and it gets stolen. Because a lot of coaches will tell you, get the ball in the middle, get to the ball in the middle. But it just throwing curveballs like that makes guys think, and it mucks the game up. That's really good. I also thought the challenge that Kenny had in the fourth quarter on the I thought originally they were challenging like a shot clock violation. It was so loud I couldn't hear it. But it was it was the play where I think there's like 1:20 left or something, and Evan Mobley didn't realize that the shot clock was winding down. He had to chuck up a 3 at the end of the clock. And the Cavs are only up 3 at this point. The game is in the balance. Cavs are only up 3, and the ball bounces off the rim, and I guess the officials did end up calling a foul on Donovan. Kenny challenges that. Call gets overturned. Cavs get the ball back. I believe that next possession resulted in free throws or something, but they never got closer than that again. Like, if you let that go, and like, again, I didn't even know what the call was because it was so loud in there. It's so easy with all the noise and everything's happening so fast for that ball to just get inbounded, and oh boy, you missed your chance. But Kenny was on it, and he saved a possession at the end of the game. Like, that is, we don't think of it like, because the challenge is so new. I think NFL coaches get judged so harshly on how they deploy the challenge flag or not. I think NBA coaches, there's a lot that goes into it, but like, that is part of game management now. And Kenny handled it expertly, which is really impressive, particularly given, I'm trying to remember when Kenny was in Brooklyn, I don't think they had challenges yet, did they? So yeah, that's pretty good.
Kenny and this coaching staff are 13 of their last 16 in coaches challenge.
And just to point this out, I think this was like also a very risky challenge, because if you don't get it, right, like you were down to one timeout with 1:20 left, you have so much time to go. You have to utilize fouls, all those other things. So that's the minutia of the game, and exactly correct, Jimmy, how important that call was, but also to be gutsy enough and to trust your coaching staff that's behind you on the video board looking at the call to make sure that they make the right call. And Chris, you made a great point.
I'm not
13 of 16.
I subscribe to the Kevin Durant theory of like, no one wants to look at graphs when we're talking about hoop, but like, how many percentage points did Kenny Atkinson add to their expected winning percentage by making that move? Probably a lot.
We were talking about this at practice today, a couple of the media members. We were like, the Cavs would have to, at this point, after winning their 32nd game, they would have to win just 16 of their next, 34 games? I can't do math, but off the top of my head, but like, that's what it would be for them to solely get and reach their projected win total at the beginning of the season. They were 48.5 at the beginning of the season. They're already at 32 wins, right? So I think it's interesting to think about how that plays into what they've been able to accomplish and where they're at in the season. Yes, it's January. Yes, it's not even January 10th, but like, this is a team that is already is actually on pace to win 60, 65, 66, even 70 games. Obviously the pace is 73 currently. I know the math on that, Jimmy. I'm just saying, in realistic, like being realistic with it. But I want to talk about.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, do it.
Why is 73 not realistic?
Here's another question. Should they try? That's the question for me. And trying is relative, right? Because like, everyone's playing like 30 minutes a game. But like, I feel like there's already so much stuff that's going to be surrounding this team when it goes into the playoffs that I don't know that you want to throw that even, that's an avalanche of stuff if you go into the playoffs. 70, the Cavs going into the playoffs with 70, Cavalanche, nice. The Cavs, who ended the 73-win Warriors title hopes, going into the playoffs with 73 wins with a former Warriors assistant as their head. Like, that's just a lot. you're inviting a lot of circus noise, I feel like.
I would say no, they shouldn't try. The Warriors were exhausted mentally and physically going for that record. I've talked to a number of different people around that organization, and they said that took a lot out of them, and it does. 15-0 at the beginning of the season took a little bit out of the Cavs mentally, physically. And there's a bigger picture in play, and the Cavs have taken that approach from the very beginning of the season with how they handle things with Donovan's workload, Darius Garland's workload, how they handle things when it comes to guys coming back from injuries, lineups, rotations, all that kind of stuff. And you just don't stray away from that in pursuit of wins. Like, they don't have to be in a situation where they're chasing wins at all cost. If it happens, it happens. And if it happens, it would be great. There's no doubt about it. But don't abandon your big picture plan, especially when you understand that this is a team that can win it all. This is a team that can win it all. This is a team that can do something special. And you need to focus on that and how to best position yourself to do something special when it comes to spring. Because, again, that's the proving ground for them. That's ultimately what this season is about. It's not about 32-4. It's not about 15-0 at the beginning of the season. It's not about potentially going 73-9. It's about, do you win a championship? Do you have the level of playoff success that you ultimately want to have that is going to turn this season into a success? Do you take the next step as an organization? That step was never going to be in the regular season. At the same time, I'm just going to point out that, okay, things could happen as this season progresses. We understand that. Injuries, losing streaks, slumps, whatever. So you can't grab a crystal ball and predict the future and say, like, what is going to be when February and March rolls around. But they're going to be the underdog twice, 3 times the rest of the way. Game against Boston, right? That's on the road. They're going to be the underdog in that one. In the game coming up against Oklahoma City, probably going to be the underdog in that one. But they are the best team in the NBA. So the rest of this schedule, even though there are some difficult matchups on there, Houston on the road, Dallas, who knows what Dallas is going to look like, Memphis, New York, those games are certainly on the schedule. But, like, those teams haven't proven that they are on the Cavs level. So, again, you don't want to get carried away. But when you're the best team in the NBA, 73-9 becomes a little bit more possible. Just saying.
You don't want to, obviously what you don't want to do is, sit everyone because you want to reverse jinx yourself or something. That's stupid. But this is how good they are. This is how dumb we're talking. And speaking of dumb, can I offer you a glimpse into my very drunk crystal ball, where it's the last day of the regular season? The Cavs play the Pacers at 1 p.m. on a Sunday. They're 72-9. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen are all in street clothes. And Ty Jerome and Sam Merrill are gunning for 73 against the Indiana Pacers, who probably will need that game for play-in seeding or something. Like, come on. That's the good stuff right there.
I was exaggerating because they're going to be the underdog in more games than that, but, like, it's not going to be many. It's only going to be a small handful.
And I want to get back to this game in particular a little bit more, just because I feel like when you talk about how the maturation of every player that showed itself or themselves in tonight's game, like Darius Garland, we talk about the floater that kind of sealed the game. but we didn't talk about how he was getting walled up at the half court line and then was able to maneuver and use his physicality, his added strength that he didn't have last year to get by his defender, to reset, pull the ball back out, and then go and use his speed and his agility to blow by the defender. That's something that we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about not only Jared Allen getting rebounds, but Jimmy mentioned it slightly, his passing, being an offensive hub. He talked about how his growth from when he was going up against Isaiah Hartenstein 2 years ago in the Knicks first round series is not that the lights were too bright, but the game was moving too fast for him, right? Like it was moving too fast in a high level game, and now he's been able to slow it down to the point where he can predict where his teammates are going to be on the offensive end and then where the opposing team is going to be on the defensive end to help predict and just kind of stop those different easier opportunities that he gave up 2 years ago. That's the maturation of that. But I really do think that they get the feedback that they might have needed, which is we are who we are, but still going into OKC. Do you guys still see that as more of a bigger test because of what OKC might have learned about the Cavs in this game? And I have another question before we wrap up, before we end this thing. So let's get through that one first.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma City being at home is going to help. Oklahoma City seeing the Cavs. See, that's the thing. Like, I almost kind of look at it like a fast football team, right? You can sit there and you can hear all these different things about how fast they are, but you have to feel it, right? You have to go up against it and see that speed in person. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to the Cavs. Like, you can hear all this stuff about their ball movement and their diversity on offense and the continuous movement and the cutting and stuff like that. But you have to feel it. You have to go against it. You have to see it firsthand to understand it truly. And one of the things that I'm actually paying attention to as this season goes on for the Cavs is just how do teams try and adjust to that once they see it on tape a little bit more, once they play against it a few times. And for Oklahoma City, yeah, I mean, I think the Cavs are the kind of team that can catch you off guard with their speed, with their spacing, with their movement, with their cutting, because it's just different than a lot of teams in the NBA. The way that they go about things offensively is very, very unique. It's not just what it was last year, certainly, for the Cavs. It's very unpredictable. So I think you get a better sense the more and more you see the Cavs. But at the same time, the Cavs get a better sense of what Oklahoma City wants to do at both ends of the floor the more and more that they see them. And I just think, when the Cavs are close to full strength, I just think they have more answers than a lot of teams in the NBA. I think they have more firepower than a lot of teams in the NBA. And that's no disrespect to Oklahoma City or New York or, Denver or some of these other teams. It's just like, I think they're so comfortable within their own system, offensively and defensively, that JJ Redick said it best. Like, the margin for error against the Cavs is very, very small. And they force you, they're not going to beat themselves. And they force you to play almost perfect basketball. And it's hard for a lot of teams in the NBA to do that. Even a team as good, as talented as Oklahoma City. Like, I think the Cavs are just constructed a certain kind of way with so much lineup and rotational versatility that they're very, very difficult to deal with for 48 minutes.
It looks hard to tackle Lamar Jackson. It's even harder to do it when you see him. It's just, I'm holding on to that analogy. And yeah. To your point about the counters, Chris,
you're turning into Kenny Atkinson with the football analogies. That's what you're doing.
Kenny had he compared Jared Allen to an all-pro tackle who just goes unnoticed.
Tailback.
Yeah. He started with running backs, and he said, well, no, Kenny knows ball. He said, well, what's the devalued position group in the NFL? It's running backs, right? Well, no, we're starting to swing that back. Like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry are like going to play major roles in the playoffs. No, Jarrett's like a tackle who's just moving people out of the way down low, all pro tackle, like the guy that you don't notice sometimes because he's doing his job so well, right? And the point about counters, I'm sure OKC will throw some different stuff at him, but the Cavs counters are like built in, right? Like the ball's jumping from side to side. If there's not something over here, okay, we're going over here. We're going to run this action over here. If you're going to force us to play a little iso ball, okay, let's see if Darius has a mismatch. Darius doesn't have a mismatch. Donovan has a mismatch. Okay, well, if that switch doesn't work out,
right.
Evan Mobley down low, Jared Allen. Like, if you want to go zone, we got two bigs who we can throw the ball to at the elbow, and they can. We know they can be offensive hubs, and we can surround them with 4 shooters. Based at a certain point with great offenses, you get to the point where the best thing a defense can hope for is for the right person to be shooting the open shot, right? You try to slant, you do everything you can so that, I don't know, it ends up with an open Isaac Okoro 3 or something like that. But guess what? The Cavs are so deep now that whoever that person ends up being, I don't mean to pick on Isaac, but he will be the guy if he's on the court a lot of the times. The Cavs will just rotate him in and out. That's where what Kenny's doing right now with these deep rotations will pay huge dividends later, because he can, call, okay, Sam Merrill, you haven't played in a couple quarters, run in there, shoot some shots up there. Ty Jerome, go give us a spark. Like, there's just so many different options that it's hard, man. You could throw all the different kind of stuff you want. The Cavs have the counters built in.
The growth of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen as passers, that is so important to this team. And Jared talked about it all off season, that's something that he worked on. And obviously Evan Mobley worked on that as well. But think about the number of times throughout the course of tonight's game against Oklahoma City that the Thunder sent 2 on the ball, whether it was Darius, whether it was Karras, whether it was Donovan, send 2 on the ball. Like, who's the outlet? Most of the time, it's going to be the screen setter. And oftentimes, that's going to be Jarrett, or that's going to be Evan Mobley. And it reminds me a lot of Draymond Green in Golden State. Like, having that guy be the outlet for Steph or Clay or Iguodala, and then you get to play 4-on-3, and Draymond gets to be your decision maker. Like, that's tough for an opposing defense to deal with. If Jarrett's going to be this level of passer, this level of decision maker, if Evan is going to be this level of passer and decision maker, like, that takes the Cavs offense to a completely different level. There were so many times that Darius threw that outlet pass to Jarrett, and Jarrett was the decision maker in a 4-on-3 situation. Sometimes he tried to finish himself. Sometimes he did that big-to-big pass to Evan Mobley, who was coming down the baseline. Other times, he stopped, took his time, he gathered, and he kicked it into the corner to somebody. And then there was another action that was run from that. So the evolution of those 2 guys as playmakers, think about a couple of years ago against New York, where Evan was the outlet. They sent 2 on the ball was in the hands of Evan Mobley, and he was like, what do I do? Do I pass? Do I shoot? There was that moment of hesitation. And that moment of hesitation in a playoff series, where everything happens so fast. Like, it just seemed like the game was moving too fast for him. Seriously. And Mitchell Robinson even made a comment about them being shook because they were so indecisive. And you're just not seeing that from Jarrett, right? You're not seeing that from Evan. And part of it is, this system. This system is one that makes a lot of players really, really comfortable. It's a system that makes a lot of players really, really confident. But if they're going to be these kinds of decision makers, oh boy, because that used to be a solution for teams playing against the Cavs, right? Just like shading off Isaac Okoro used to be a solution. It used to be, all right, we'll send 2 on the ball, take it out of the hands of Darius, take it out of the hands of Donovan. We'll take our chances because Evan Mobley's just not always going to make the right decision. Jared Allen's not always going to be able to make certain passes, especially in tight, congested spaces. Tonight, man, was he good. Man, was Evan good playing in 4-on-3 situations. So, I just wonder if that's all of a sudden going to start being on the scouting report for opposing teams. And it's like, are they going to be more hesitant to send two on the ball, both at Darius and at Donovan? And if they are going to be hesitant to do that, what does that mean for Donovan and Darius?
Two more quick things to that point, Chris. Sorry, Ethan. Two more quick things. To your point about Jarrett making a play, and then even if it's not there, the Cavs running into another action. The way they do that so seamlessly is really impressive, and I think like that there's an element of playing with pace there, which is some people just think that that's pushing and running fast breaks essentially and running off of misses and stuff.
Right.
But like playing with pace also means like making quick decisions. Like the Cavs sometimes will be running multiple actions in one possession and you won't even notice it because there's no like reset, right? Sometimes a play doesn't work, you throw it out, okay, let's, dribble around a little bit. No. It's like 0.5 basketball, bink, bink, bink. And the defense's head is spinning. I think that's a really important thing that Kenny has preached all year is playing with pace and some version of what that looks like. The other thing is the Draymond comparison, particularly as it pertains to Evan on offense. I used to think like watching the Prime Warriors that, man, if Draymond makes threes, you just lose. Like, you're out of options, man. Like the 1 year, I think it was the 2016 year, where Draymond shot like high 30s, low 40s from three. He hit a bunch in the game 7 loss against the Cavs. It just felt like if he was making them, really this guy too, you lose. That's kind of how I feel about, like, if Evan is really going to be this guy on a legit volume, I don't think he made any tonight. I think he missed one, but like at a certain point, you just lose. That's the option that I land on.
And I think, Chris, you did a great job of going further into what I was trying to say earlier about slowing the game down for Jarrett and how that has helped him kind of grow. And that's what I'm going to write about for tomorrow. But when you feel like a guy is developing and showing himself, and you got to just believe him, because Jarrett has become the guy, and you ask Darius Garland, he'll tell you the heart and soul of the team. And that's on both ends of the floor, especially when you talk about the offensive hub type aspect that he had today. And he mentioned it, playing on 2 feet. So he's not rushing. He's being able to make decisions clearly. And you would see it, like, because he wasn't in the lane, he was at the top of the key, or he was at the free throw line, he had the option to simply sit there and wait and look and see what was going to happen around him before making a decision, leading to no turnovers on his part today. He had 6 assists and 0 turnovers. So as a big man, it's really good numbers. But we've talked so much about the offensive end of the ball today for the Cavs, and as we should, as both teams shot over 50% from the field. The Cavs shot 41.7% from 3. The Thunder shot 35.5% from 3. But the main goal of the Cleveland Cavaliers coming into today was to stifle Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the offensive end. And I want to get your guys' takeaway from the defensive performance of the Cavaliers, especially when you talk about the back and forth affair, but also how Kenny Atkinson was able to use the different matchups that we talked about throughout this podcast, being able to utilize Dean Wade, Karis LeVert, sometimes Max Strus, sometimes Isaac Okoro coming off the bench solely to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. What did you guys think about the work that they did? And Ty Jerome kind of finished his press conference with this, like, even if he has 30, by taking so many shots, that's how they wanted to be able to guard him. And he only had 4 attempts at the free throw line.
Here's the list of defenders that had a chance against SGA tonight, according to NBA.com matchup data. Ready? Karis LeVert, Dean Wade, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, George Niang. All of them guarded Shai at one point or another tonight. And it's something that we talked about on the previous podcast. The Cavs believe that they have, they have guys at the back end of their defense in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley that can erase mistakes, cover up for flaws, and help out as much as they possibly can. And that's really, really important when you're talking about point of attack defense, to have that level of trust and that level of belief in the guys behind you. So that's going to help all of these different guys. But the Cavs have guys that they trust in these kinds of matchups. Dean Wade is an elite on-ball defender. Isaac Okoro has been getting pumped up as an all-defensive type player by teammates and by coaches for the last couple of years, ever since he got into the NBA. Ty Jerome is bigger than people realize, and he's very, very pesky, and he has a knack for getting steals, and Max Strus will defend his ass off. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a center, if you're a point guard, Max is going to take that challenge. He's not always going to win that challenge, but he is going to battle, and he is going to compete. And I certainly don't think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander enjoyed his time on Dean Wade Island. Not a lot of people enjoy their time on Dean Wade Island because he forces you into tough shots, because he stays in front of you, because he takes you out of your comfort zone. And I thought Karras did a great job. Like, Karras hijacked possessions offensively, and he got a little bit too dribble happy, and his numbers aren't going to point to him having a big impact. But according to NBA.com matchup data, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went 1 of 5 when Caris LeVert was the primary defender. And he has the quickness, he has the length, he has the athleticism, he has the versatility. He can be an impactful defender. And at the very least, the only thing that you can ask for from a defense against that caliber player, Shai's an MVP candidate. He's an MVP candidate for a reason. He's one of the premier offensive players in the entire NBA. The only thing that you can ask for is make it as difficult as possible. Make him as inefficient as possible. And for him to get 31 points, but do it on 27 shots, couldn't ask for more from the Cavs defense. I thought they did a really, really good job. And I thought they did a really, really good job of not giving him everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have the things on your scouting report that you're trying to take away and you're trying to force him into. And sometimes he's going to do those things and you just tip your cap, right? But I thought the Cavs did a really, really good job of keeping him away from the rim, out of the paint, and giving him the kinds of matchups that he probably wanted, that he thought were advantageous for him.
I think the zone helped with some of keeping him out of the paint too. But yes, echoing everything you're saying, tonight's only the 10th time this season that Shai has attempted 4 free throws or fewer. He's not a guy who necessarily needs to get to the rim to get free throws. Like, you saw him tonight game a couple of, or maybe just one of those, Darius put his arm on him and then Shai goes into the shooting motion. He's really good at that. Chris Paul, Joel Embiid, James Harden, BS. He's gotten really good at the art of drawing fouls. When you're guarding a superstar like that, it's really just count the shots that it took him to score all those points. Shai scored 31 points on 27 shots. You're taking that 10 times out of 10. I mean, he's going to get some of those step back mid-range jumpers that he shoots over. He's going to hit some of those turnaround fadeaways. That's just who that guy is. He'll score the sleepiest 30 points he ever saw. He did it again tonight. But I thought that the Cavs, what's the old adage? The best thing you can do with some of those guys is just make them work. Make it look like a difficult 30 points. And it did.
Here's the other thing that they did. They went at him on the defensive end of the floor, and they got him in foul trouble. That's what you have to do sometimes. You have to force that guy to exert a lot of energy on defense, and if you can get him in foul trouble, that's the quickest way to get him off the floor. And I thought part of the reason why he wasn't able to get to the foul line, I believe, like, his 4th foul that came around the 9-minute mark of the third quarter, I believe that also coincided with Oklahoma City, getting foul shots every time they got fouled by the Cavs for like the final 7 minutes, I want to say, of the third quarter. And Shai wasn't on the court. Like, he couldn't be on the court to take advantage of that because the Cavs were attacking him on the defensive end. This is not to say he's a defensive liability. He's not. He's a very good defender. He's long. He's athletic. He gets in the passing lanes. He gets steals. But you need to go at that guy. Ty Jerome said it after the game. when they're a defense that is designed the way that they are, you have to meet them with force. You can't retreat. You have to go right at them. And I thought there were times that the Cavs said, you know what, we got to have Mobley on Shea. We're going to get him the ball. And either Shea's going to give up a bucket, he's going to have to work really, really hard to keep from giving up a bucket, or he's going to have to foul. And that's what you have to do in if they're going to switch as freely as they do, punish them for those things. And they did. And they took Shea out of the game for a majority of the second half because he literally was out of the game. He was on the bench. And the Cavs, as soon as Shea exited the game after picking up his fourth foul, the Cavs went on a 9-2 run.
It cannot be overstated, like the rhythm, the disruption that creates. Mm-hmm. Basketball players are such freakish creatures of habit. Like these dudes shoot the same number of shots before they leave the court all the time. They probably, a lot of them eat the same meal before games, and like your minute substitution pattern matters a lot to you. It's the Cavs. The fact that the Cavs were able to get him in foul trouble to the point where where Daigneault actually had to change the normal flow of Shea's minutes, like that makes a difference. And to the point about attacking him on defense, that's such a huge playoff series chess piece, because you saw a workout tonight over the course of one game, but like you're playing 7 games against somebody, what's it gonna look like by game 6? Like if Shea looked a little bit off tonight, in part because the Cavs were attacking him on defense or getting him out of his rhythm, whatever, like try doing that 6 times over the next 10 days or whatever, however we work in a playoff scenario. Think about what happened to Luka in the playoffs last year. Kind of got embarrassed in the finals by the Celtics. They just kept hunting him, made him work. He looked tired at times. He was a little banged up, but he looked tired because the Celtics were making him work at both ends. These guys, these high usage guys we talked about on the last podcast, Shea's 33% usage rate. Like he is the sun around which the Thunder offense revolves. It's hard to do that if you're moving your feet a ton on the other end. And the Cavs offense is designed really well to make guys work with the way they run off the ball and stuff. But the Thunder try to combat that by switching. So guard on the ball. Let's see what you got.
And Jimmy, I think that's a really good point, especially because obviously Shea has the viral quote that like everything in his life is consistent. So like to be able to throw him off his game and be able to take away that consistency, it hurts him. And Darius mentioned before the game, even at shoot around this morning, that like he gets confidence, Shea does, from making free throws because he's a mid-range shooter. You take away his ability to get reps at the free throw line, that you take away his confidence, not take it away, but you limit the amount that he can gain in the consistency of, because he's just at the foul line all the time. So I think it was a great game when it comes to what the Cavs were able to do defensively, and especially when we talk about going to the zone and utilizing Max Strus in that way and having him be kind of the anchor of the zone because of his time with Miami and how he helped the Cavs put it in when he was injured. I just think it's something to look forward to when you talk about how Kenny, again, continues to make the right move, whether it means plugging and playing a certain player, going to a certain rotation, or making the right adjustment on either end of the floor when it comes to scheme and setup that has allowed the Cavs to get to where they are.
And look, Shea's great. Everybody understands that Shea is great. This wasn't a situation where, the Cavs had Jamal Murray looking like he was 50 years old, or they body bagged LaMelo Ball, or, whatever else Tristan Thompson wanted to say after the game about the run of point guards that Darius Garland put in his sights. But, they made it so that Shea's impact wasn't consistently felt throughout the course of the game. Like, his fingerprints weren't all over the outcome of this one, like they have been in so many big games in the past. And that's about all you can ask for.
A weird compliment I will give the Cavs defense is that Shea made a lot of impressive shots tonight. You know what I mean?
He did. Yeah.
It's in a weird way, you kind of want, like when Shea's just sleepwalking to 30, that's when he's so dangerous, right? But tonight you noticed the 31 that Shea put in because he was making tough shots because the Cavs were making him take tough shots.
And he got frustrated too, like with not getting foul calls or limiting the amount of shots that you were getting that weren't with a hand in his face. He was fading on almost all of his mid-range shots rather than getting to step into a midi that he's used to because he's been able to get away from his defender at the point of attack on the ball. It's just a kudos to what the Cavs were able to do on both sides of the ball, but they don't get to celebrate because they got to do it again tomorrow, even though it is against the Toronto
Raptors. Toronto Raptors, baby.
They don't have to.
Toronto Raptors parade.
Everybody
coming
will
through
give
Cleveland.
them a pass if they lose the game tomorrow against Toronto.
Oh, real quick before we go, I really wanted to do this. I'm gonna read you some box score stats from the Knicks Raptors game that ESPN thought was the right game to broadcast tonight. Jacoby Walter. How many listeners have heard of Jacoby Walter?
Yeah.
Damn near.
Hold on. Just before you do this, Jimmy, I'm gonna let you do it. But before you do it,
Are you?
Remember when I said Jimmy just be yapping on this podcast sometimes, and I said I was gonna let him do that at the beginning of the episode, so we got it out the way. I just wanted to point it out that I
honestly feel this is like the perfect outro because we started off by saying, "Man, you don't need any of these big city fixins on this basketball game. Take that, broadcast networks." Well, this is how we're ending it. This little circle back technique. Would you have rather watched Jacoby Walter damn near give the full Tony Snell tonight? 22 minutes, 0 points, 0 blocks, 1 rebound, 1 assist? I don't think so. Would you have preferred to watch Mikal Bridges go 4 for 18, 2 for 11 from 3?
2 of 11 from 3.
2 of 11 from 3. He scored 10 points. He took 11 threes. He missed 9 of them. Those are a lot of numbers that are closer together than Mikal Bridges would like them to be. Jalen Brunson, 13 points. That's your main attraction. 5 of 13. Knicks sleepwalking through a victory against the Raptors, who are 1-16 on the road. Okay, I'm done.
If I'm Kenny Atkinson tomorrow night, after going through everything that he went through in preparation for the OKC game, I'm just getting 2 technicals early on in the game. Throw me out. Johnny, you got this one. Johnny Bryant, you got this one. There's nothing else that is going to match what it was last night against OKC. I'm still on an emotional high. Let me just exit the court. Let me get 2 fouls, try and pump 2 technical fouls, try and pump up the team, and then I'll watch this one from my cozy coach's office.
Blessing in disguise.
Coaching that game tomorrow against the Raptors, what is that going to feel like to somebody like Kenny Atkinson, who is a lunatic, and I mean this in the nicest way, who is a lunatic when it comes to coaching after, being in what he was in the night before against Oklahoma City, which is one of the best regular season basketball games that I have ever witnessed and that he's probably ever coached.
First of all, I'd like to reiterate that we mean no disrespect to the Toronto Raptors and that Scottie Barnes is all-star. But how about this? Blessing in disguise, Donovan Mitchell, 3 of 16 tonight. Obviously, that's good because the Cavs beat a very good team in spite of that. But also, Donovan Mitchell, mad tomorrow against a bad Toronto Raptors team. That could be fun.
Or Donovan Mitchell DNP rest tomorrow.
Yeah, well...
Thank you, Chris, for bringing it back to reality. Thank you. I appreciate that. So
it's 3 games and 4 nights. No, 5 nights. Sorry, bad math. 3 games and 5 nights. And then going into a road trip. A pretty tough road trip. I'm just saying. I wouldn't discount DNP rest.
Bad math like Mikal Bridges shooting 11 threes when he only had 10 points. Hey, now. Put him on national television.
Okay. All right. The last point, the very last point I'm going to make of this podcast is that the Cavs, in this very highly anticipated and very tough game, still didn't play anybody over 35 minutes.
Yep.
The most was 35-09, 35-09. Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley. Everybody else, 32 and below. So, another game where Kenny Atkinson proved that he can play with his bench. He can use everybody in the rotation, but we'll have to see what happens when Sam Merrill returns to the court and if Kenny Atkinson keeps his word, as he reiterated after the game tonight, that he was going to play 11 guys in a rotation.
He has to. He has no other choice. He can't just eliminate somebody from the rotation at this point because all 11 believe that they should be playing at some point, and they're accurate in thinking that. They've all earned an opportunity. So he has to play 11. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Pull out your spreadsheets and try and find, enough minutes for all these different guys. Kenny's trying to do it, and it is a challenge. But he has to. He can't just take somebody out of the rotation at this point.
Maybe that'll be a topic for a different podcast, Chris. We break out the Excel sheet and do some math, because I know we struggled with math on today's episode. So sorry for that if you guys were looking for mathematicians.
Nobody struggled with math like Jacoby Walter tonight. The near full Tony Snell.
God. I should have I shouldn't have even entertained that. Anyway, okay. With that being said,
I do feel bad for Tony Snell that he has just been turned into a meme. That's
Actually,
all he is.
I take it back. I don't feel bad for people who do math on Jacoby Walter's box score, because that's some real easy math. 1 rebound, 1 assist. I don't even remember what the box score was anymore, but we're done counting.
Finally. We're finally done counting. And with that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs Insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. And yes, this is where you can sign up to hear us yap even more about the Cleveland Cavaliers, but we'll be giving you insight while we do it, just like we do on this podcast, but we have a little bit more fun when we get to talk to you guys. So sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.